Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining. We're just going to wait a minute more for people to join, and then we'll get kicking off. Right. Room seems to be filling up nicely, so I think it's time to kick off. Thank you, everyone, for joining this Custom Lenses webinar. I'm Elliot, the Chief Product Officer here at Bowhurst. We'll do some intros in a minute, but just some initial housekeeping. We have a Q&A function in the chat. Feel free to just throw any questions you might have throughout the session, and we have some time at the end that we'll get to. We'll cover a few topics today, and we'll go from simple things into kind of more advanced usage of this tool. Don't be afraid, no question is too simple about this or about anything about Bowhurst or about the wider AI space. We're all learning here, so don't be afraid to kind of throw in your questions. But first, I'll hand over to Annie to start the introductions.
Amazing, thanks Elliot. Hi, I'm Annie. I'm a lead account manager here at Bowhurst. I'll be talking through how Lenses translates into clients' workflows and the commercial value add.
Hello, I'm Joss. I'm product design lead here at Bowhurst, and I've been leading on our AI product developments. I'm going to show you our most recent release, Lenses, and how you can make the most out of them.
Hi, I'm Alejandro Giacometti. I'm the Director of Engineering, and I will be talking to you a little bit about how this is built.
Excellent. Thanks, everyone. I just wanted to say a few words to begin with. I'm really lucky enough to speak to clients, many of you who are on the call today, across dozens of different industries. We see a vast variety of use cases, and every time I go on a call, I'm always learning something new about how people are using our data to kind of solve a new problem for their organization. But I'd say there's one common trend when I speak to users, is that there is this complex, messy, uncertain human decision that has to be made at the end of this process that's at the heart of every organization. That could be setting public policy, it could be advising a client through a complex transaction, it could be making an investment in a new startup, or simply trying to foster a new fruitful relationship with a potential client kind of that's grounded in trust. These are all problems that data will never provide the full answer for. But that doesn't mean everyone isn't yearning to be ever more informed to make these decisions better in the face of this large uncertainty. And this is what we've been working on to help since the company was founded over 15 years ago. We've been building higher quality data, more data on each company, and a broader set of companies, now covering every single company in the UK and Germany. Data that you can rely on to inform these really complex decisions. But we've kind of created a problem for ourselves, and as the sheer volume of data has increased, this has kind of created new challenges in how you find the data that's most relevant to you in amongst this massive set. So when I think about how AI will change our industry and the ones we work with, there is a huge amount of uncertainty. I don't have all the answers or can predict the future here, but it's clear to me that although many parts of the workflow may change dramatically, there is one part that won't. This human, uncertain decision at the end of it. There's not going to be an AI investment committee or autonomous public policy being set anytime soon. So really, when we think about how we bring the benefits of AI to our products, it's not about eliminating work. We might do some of that in the process, but really it comes down to how we empower you to make more informed and better decisions, building on this data that you can trust and finding the pieces that are most relevant for you and moving away the bits that are less relevant to you. These are all principles that we've had since we were founded, and how we've been building our platform since then, AI or not. But I think there's some interesting opportunities now with what these tools can offer, grounded in our data set. Hopefully, as an example, many of you have used a chance to use our natural language search that we released last year. This was built on top of our advanced search tool, where you can find lists of companies that are relevant to you, amongst many other things. That tool was incredibly powerful before this AI search came along, but I'll be the first to admit it was a bit daunting. There were hundreds of options to pick from, and we had lots of customers kind of come to us, and we needed to really help them kind of get the most out of it. We wanted you to be able to find the companies using your own language, not ours. So crucially, we don't just return a list of results, we transform that and show you how we transform that into this kind of structured query so you can trust it, and then you can go on and tweak it beyond there. We've made tons of releases, but this is not about that feature. We've just taken, this is the same approach that we've taken to our lenses tool, and now I'm gonna hand over to the others to tell you more about it. So over to Annie.
Amazing, thanks Elliot. So as mentioned, I'm Annie, I'm lead account manager here at Bohurst. I work primarily with our advise and invest clients. Bohurst is an incredibly rich data platform. We have lots of data points on companies, funds, so on and so forth. And so a large part of my role is helping our clients navigate around these data points to be able to find that so what when answering and asking questions of the data. The reason that this is such a large part of my role is because we know two things to be true. One, it's difficult to know where to look in the data to ask questions. And two, it takes a lot of time when researching companies and looking and assessing which data points are relevant. So if I take an example of the client I work with, so maybe a business development professional at a law firm who is looking for companies that are likely to exit, they're wanting to get ahead of that exit curve. So they're wanting to establish those relationships nice and early so that they can win the mandate when that company goes on and eventually exits. So currently, when assessing what companies might be relevant, they would look at a company profile and they would have to go through the tabs. So looking at things such as like financials, leadership information, what funds are investing in them, transactions, hiring, whether they have any original IP, and so on and so forth. And to go through all of these tabs, they are looking essentially at whether this company would be a good prospect or not. Once they've gathered this information, they're then having to piece it all together and then be able to create a write-up and circulate that information across the firm. This ultimately takes a lot of time when doing this for not only like a dozen, but 100 different companies. And essentially, this is where we've really seen the power of lenses. With lenses, you can really quickly query whether this company would be a good fit based on the profile that you're looking for. And so you spend less time researching and more time being able to build those relationships, which ultimately will get you to win those mandates. So if we go back to that BD example, perhaps, with lenses, you'd be able to spot a company like Darktrace, who was showing signs they were very likely to exit, whereas they were growing and they had institutional backing, they had an original IP, and ultimately win that ahead of them going on and achieving that exit event. Just, I will hand over to you.
Thank you, Annie. I am going to share my screen because I've got some slides. So what are lenses? Annie's gone through sort of the benefits of using them, but what actually are they in the first place? Well, first and foremost, they allow you to ask any question about a company and get to an answer quickly. With a custom lens, it's a saved research question. It's a question you've refined until it gives you the answer that you need and that you can run on the next company and the one after that in a single click. Now, the thinking behind this is quite simple. Most of you have repeat research questions that you're asking when looking at different companies. You just have to re-ask it and, as Annie said, go digging a little for the data. A lens takes that methodology that's currently living inside of your head and makes it a permanent part of your research process. So I'm going to switch over to the platform now. This is Bowhurst. This is what a company profile looks like on Bowhurst. One Rebel is a chain of boutique gyms. And you can see we've got a lot of data on this page. You can immediately sort of see their growth signals. They've got a risk signal. And these tabs along the side show you all of the data that we have. Each one of those tabs contains a lot to process. We've recently released this bar at the top. Now, those are lenses. We've started off by giving you 5 preset lenses: highlights, growth trajectory, financial health, people, and innovation and impact. These are use cases that are quite common. And so we've created some presets which you can simply click to get to an answer. But what I'm going to show you today is this side panel on the right-hand side, which you can enter by clicking that little preview strip. Here again, you can see your lenses, both the presets and any that you've created in a list. You can click into them for easy access. But importantly, you can also use this input field to ask your own question. So following on from the exit example, when I land on this company, I can ask, what is this company's likelihood of exit? Press enter, give it a few seconds, and let's see what comes back. Right, so here you can see it's pulling together relevant data points to help you answer this question. You can see that it's showing multiple positive indicators for potential exit activity. It's giving you some detail about the funding rounds, its investment from Imbiba in May 2024, and the reasons for that investment. As well, it's pulling out some of its financials and the fact that it operates in the growth stage, as well as those risk signals. It has 2 outstanding charges and 2 satisfied charges, as well as sort of a partnership development and new flagship locations in Chelsea. Now, you could have done this by looking at the company page, but what a lens does is it helps you to identify the right data to help you answer this question or any question that you have. Below the answer, you can see the sources that were used. So these sources are all the tabs that you would have had to click through originally to find this data. Now it's much easier to identify what's important to this question and where you can go to find out more. So already that's not bad, but this lens doesn't yet know what I care about in terms of data or what a good response might look like to me. So let's see what happens if we try a more detailed input. This is a prompt we've created for exit assessment research. We've given it a role to start off with. So you are a private markets analyst preparing an exit assessment, which keeps it grounded, followed by a clear single instruction to assess the likelihood of this company exiting in the next 1 to 3 years, keeping it outcome focused. I've listed out 5 factors which may impact exit likelihood. And again, you can start off with a sort of simple question to figure out what that data might be or what it is that you're specifically interested in here. There's a line about methodology to adjust your assessment based on company type, industry stage, and whether growth is organic or inorganic. This part builds in some contextual judgment based on the fact that an exit likelihood may look different based on the type of growth that the company has undergone. I've then detailed the output format that I would like. So I would like an exit likelihood score, an expected timeline, probable exit route, and to pull out some key risk signals. Then at the bottom, I've also included a weighting criteria. These are some thresholds that I care about for turnover, valuation, and total funding raised when I'm doing exit likelihood research. So I've run that one earlier, and this is what came back. Immediately, you can see that it's longer, but importantly, it's more structured. It's still pulling out the relevant detail. One rebel shows mixed signals. The first sentence has changed slightly because I've been a bit stricter in my prompt. We can still see that revenue is strong, and now we can understand that it's nearing the threshold we're interested in of 30 million. Investor tenure suggests some pressure. Leadership transition is underway. But the outstanding charges and capital-intensive expansion model introduce some uncertainty. What's different here is that now we've got an exit score, as well as a timeline and an exit route that we can work with. The score makes it comparable across companies, so I can understand very quickly how one rebel might differ from a different company's exit likelihood score. It's given me those risk signals again that I can choose to dig into. But ultimately, this sort of an assessment does still require human judgment, but this is an output you can trust as a starting point. And the underlying data is the same as before. What's changed is the instruction that we've given. I've broken down on this slide the components of our prompt. If you're interested, we'll share the slides so you can read through this later. I won't go over it in too much detail now, but this sort of breaks down why each of those components have an impact on the output that you get from the lens. This is important for reusability and designing for any company, not just one. You can still ask simple questions. This doesn't sort of stop you from doing that. If you land in a company and you have a one-off question, it's easier to do that than ever before. But what this structure does is it helps you make your research more robust and more reliable when you are reviewing not just one company, but multiple companies. And it means you're not starting from scratch each time. So here I've recorded myself going to a different company after the one I've just reviewed, and you can see that the same lens will load again automatically as soon as you land on the company. And when the question changes, you can simply switch lens by using the drop down at the top. And that's important because this structure is applicable to any use case, not just exit likelihood research, but for example, SWOT analysis. Here you can identify the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats facing a company. You could determine governance risk or assess impact and innovation. These are just some examples I've put on the slide, but really you can tailor this however you like. Your prompt can be very short or it can be very long. Some of ours are so long they don't fit on the slide. Some of them are so short, like the one I demoed at the beginning, and you can still get a lot of value from that. But the true value of the lens is that it is yours. You can adapt it to your specific needs, save it, and reuse it. I'll hand over to Alejandro now to speak about what's behind our AI.
Thank you, Jess. Yeah, so I want to talk to you a little bit about how this is built. I'm in charge of the team that's building this and like all Bowhurst. And when we introduce AI, if you go to the next slide, we want to make sure that we sort of take the same approach that we take with all of our data. We want to build on that reputation for high quality data that you can actually base your decisions on. And so there's two main components to a lens. One is sort of the prompt that you're giving it, and then the data. And like the crucial thing to remember is that every insight that a lens is going to give you is backed by that data, that high quality data. In custom lenses, it's the interesting thing that we have built is an ability that when you ask the question, for us to understand what pieces of information are relevant for that and surface them. And when an insight is produced, then the lens will always reference those data points in the bottom, so that then you can go and verify them. And this is AI, so you will have to verify. But we don't want to abdicate responsibility here. So if you go to the next slide, we have built a series of evaluations on agents, so that we know that we are giving you the best information that we can. So every agent, the preset ones and the custom lenses, have been built around these parameters for understanding whether the data is we have enough information to provide you with the insight that you require, whether the information is relevant to the question or it's something that has veered off topic. The agents are evaluated for factual consistency, so we can trace everything that every claim made in the insight back to a data point, whether it has enough information. So does it have enough information to actually make an assessment on that specific insight, and whether we are providing the complete picture. We cannot check the output of every agent, but we have built the agents so that they are in everything that they produce, they are taking these judging parameters into account. On top of that, we have built sort of guardrails to check for safety, and which are run on every output. But yeah, the crucial things and the point that I want you to take from this is that every insight is built on the high quality data, and agents have been built with these judges in mind, so that they are always giving you the right information. And I'll hand back to Jess. She's going to tell you about the exciting things that we're building next.
Thank you, Alejandro. So what is next? Well, this is just the beginning for Lenses. We're always building, and these are some of the areas that we are looking at next. First, doing this at scale. So how might this work across thousands of companies at once to really supercharge your research? And at that point, you might want structured outputs. So for example, making that score that we looked at something that's filterable and something that you can search over. Essentially having the ability to create your own data point that lives alongside ours. We're also looking at which sources we input into the lens. We have a lot of data, as has been mentioned in this webinar so far. You may benefit from the flexibility to choose, or even to get deeper access into our own data sources, so things like company filings. But ultimately, your feedback shapes our roadmap. So try out Lenses, get in touch if you want to know more, or if you'd like support setting up the right lens for your use case, or if you have feedback to share on what you'd like to see next. We'd love to hear from you. And I think we've got some time for questions and answers now, so I will hand back to Elliot.
Excellent. Yeah, everyone, please see a few of you already done this, so please send any questions into the chat. I think one from Simone here, is there a prompt library or starting point for templates that they can use? Maybe just.
Yeah, so we have got some examples in our Intercom Help Center article for Lenses, which you can access from the platform in the Lenses side panel. We'll also share these slides with you afterwards, so you can look at the ones that we've referenced in this webinar. But also, we're more than happy to help supporting you in creating the perfect lens for your use case. So please do get in touch if that's something that you'd be interested in.
Excellent. I think Richard and Michelle are both asking for slides. I think we'll send the slides to everyone, so you have access to that. And also everyone will get the recording of this session as well to refer back to. I think a similar question from Mega and Chris. Do Lenses work on a single company basis? I think you touched on this a little bit on the roadmap, but maybe if you want to dive into it a bit more, or can you apply them to several companies at a collection level?
Yeah, so at the moment it is company by company. You can reuse this lens as you are navigating through companies. What we are looking at next is how this would work over a list. So how you'd use a prompt to generate that data on a list of companies in a collection.
Excellent, thanks. And having, again, maybe this was touched on the roadmap, but having created scores for a number of companies, and can we then put them into a collection and kind of filter, say, the top 20 scores, for example, and how would we work with that data going forward?
Yeah, absolutely. Again, this is something that we are looking at when it comes to generating this data over a list. I would say that we are very actively sort of looking at how this will work now. So we'd love to hear sort of the reasons behind these questions and what you would actually like to see from this, as well as maybe share some early designs with you. So please do get in touch if that's something you're interested in, and we can help and we can sort of shape it together.
Excellent. Thanks, Jess. Yeah, Chris then asked again, how do I know if a prompt is good enough to save and use again? Don't know if you have a take on that.
Back to me, perhaps.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, my personal take is that it's more about the answer you get than it is about the prompt. So your prompt can be as simple as you like or as complicated as you like, but ultimately it's about whether or not you got value from the answer and if you would want to be able to reuse that again. I don't know if anyone else had thoughts on that.
I was just going to say this is probably where like human and AI come together, because ultimately you'll be the expert in your field. So being able to look at the answer that your prompt has given back to you, looking and seeing whether is that the data you'd expect to come out, is there anything else which you feel like should come out, and then perhaps tweaking your prompt based on that, and then from there you're iterating upon your prompt to then hopefully build one which you'll then be happy to rinse and repeat across multiple different companies.
We'd love to know how this is working at the moment. We do have some features that basically when you write a prompt, it'll immediately check for safety, and so it reject prompts that are kind of unrelated to whatever we can provide. But also it tells you what data points it thinks it's relevant to the specific question that you've asked. And so there's some feedback mechanism that you get there. But yeah, we'd love to build more and understand like how we can help you build better prompts. So get in touch.
Excellent. I think there's one more question, but maybe I can take this from my own experience using this tool ahead of time as well. Mega asks again, sharing your experience on how reliable the calculations are when we ask to generate like averages or growth, turnover growth in the last 4 years or similar. For things like this, I have tried to kind of push the system more to its limits here and kind of combining multiple pieces of data together to create these calculations. And it is fairly reliable. I would, what we're going to work on as well is how we kind of ensure higher and higher accuracy there, how we kind of bring in other toolings to enable kind of fixed calculations when you're trying to run those rather than relying on the AI itself. But I found it to be quite high reliability already in that sense. But particularly when we get to like structured data and you're kind of relying on these outputs and exports, we want to kind of keep elevating that level. And as with all, I think the best use of this is kind of like helping you filter out some of the kind of the good from the bad, and then like dive in with your own traditional research on top of those good ones as well. Is where we really think the value is here. Excellent. That was perfect timing, a perfect amount of questions for how much time we have. Thank you all for joining and for contributing in the chat as well. It's been a really interesting set of questions. And yeah, let us know what you think of the tool as you dive into it. But have a nice day.
Thanks, guys. Have a nice one.